My name is Lori Power. My company is MP Benefits, and I'm a group benefit consultant. So my goal each and every week is to have a dynamic conversation where people can take critical information away and use it for their own business success. That's the goal. We want to meet, connect, and share. Really excited to have Chris in today. As I said, we're both in the benefits arena, but Chris's focus on technology, I always learn so much from you. And in that, we were talking to Steve and Tim from IHSA, and we're gonna get rowdy and talk about technology. But I want to start it off, Chris, a little bit different. And I wanted you to think back to 5 years ago and tell me, what was your favorite piece of technology that you thought you'd never live without?
5 years ago. Oh, do I have to choose one?
If you could, for the sake of argument.
Dropbox.
Dropbox. All right, I'm going to put it out to the tech guys. Steve and Tim, what was your favorite piece of technology 5 years ago?
I mean, probably for me, to be honest with you, it's like Dropbox was the first thing that came to my mind. So I hate to jump on Chris's.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
I mean, literally, I'll tell you a little story about that. I had a computer with memory. I used to store everything on there. And then at that point in time, I bought a MacBook Air with virtually no memory and just made it my mission to make sure everything was on Dropbox. So it was a big change in what we did and what I did, for sure.
All right, so we have Dropbox 5 years ago. Today, Chris, what's your favorite piece of technology? It's a two-part question. What's your favorite piece of technology today? And is Dropbox still valued by you?
Salesforce, and yes. Love Salesforce. I use that as my CRM. Everything is in there. And yes, I still love Dropbox. I was actually just using it just before we hopped on the call today. So perfect. So then so the discerning of what is of value to your business, right? And the longevity is important. And that's the good lead in for what we're talking about today, which is technology and benefits, and the deluge that we've had of choices and how to choose that choice that we can pick today for our benefit plan that is going to be of value to us 5 years down the road. Let's start with a bit of a background on you, because you come from that tech space. Oh God, this could take a long time. Grew up in tech. My dad started selling huge mainframe computers for a company called Wang Computers back in 1976. So I remember hanging out in my dad's office Sunday afternoons when he was getting work done, and I'd be, goofing around on these terminals. But I actually got into insurance back in '95, working for Applied Systems, who's the largest property and casualty software provider. Worked for them for 2 years, moved over to my ex-wife's P&C brokerage in '97, got my license in '01, started selling benefits in '06, started working with nothing but tech companies in '08. Work with about 92, 93 tech companies. Also have been an advisor at tech incubators such as the DMZ, 111, Extreme Startups, Ryerson Startup School, and also have taught on benefits of tech to groups like CGIB, KLU, IFEBP, a whole slew of them.
You're the guy to have in the room to talk about technology.
Thanks.
What's your favorite technology that has been launched? I'm going to say as a result of the pandemic. What's that favorite piece that you can't get enough of telling your clients about, that you just think this is the one to have because this is the one you're going to keep?
I mean, naturally I want to go to the telehealth platforms. I was up in Ottawa at KLU teaching in May of 2019. And part of the presentation was I talked about the number of telehealth providers in Canada at the time. There were 9 providers, and I keep track of them on a spreadsheet. I provide that to the CGIB group. I think I've got 34 on there right now. So we've been completely inundated with telehealth providers. There's some attrition going on. You see companies like, Snap Clarity, for example, being acquired. Telehealth would probably be the one that I would say is not going away after COVID's done. If you just stopped at my favorite piece of technology, I would have said my HSA. But since you said because of COVID, I had to go with that. So
Well, I mean, that's a good segue to pull in, Steve. I mean, my HSA is such a fantastic platform on the health spending accounts and ASO because of your technology. And I know, Tim, you came from the PNC world as well. If I have the backstory correct.
Wanted to
What
say, I
to-
know what a Wang computer is, Chris. You used to use them, the big systems in their office. So
do you remember those? So my dad was there with Wang from 76 through 91, and he was the top salesman in Canada's history when he left. And my dad passed away in 2013, and he literally, so funny story, he was older, my parents adopted, and dad was 42 when he adopted me. And so when he passed away, like I said, December 2013, he literally retired April 2013. He was still selling big mainframe computers. And he had some clients that have followed him from Wang to 3 other companies, Bragan Group, and then a few others. And one of them, at the very end, was Toronto Hydro. And they had followed him from 1985 up until 2013, when he said enough's enough. At the age of 88, he decided to retire.
wow, that's amazing.
So there wouldn't be much in the technology that he would have missed over the years.
God, no. We had, I was the first kid on the block to have, remember the Commodore computers, like the VIC-20s, Commodore 64s? We had those. I'm 55. I remember going to high school and having those little cards, for your programming. You had to write your code on the cards. And I'm the idiot who didn't number the back of them and then fell in the hall and actually dropped them everywhere. So yeah, I've been around tech. When I was with Applied Systems, I was on the team that there's 3 of us rolled out the first Windows product across Canada. And, everyone thinks, oh, I've got, stupid experiences with tech. Can I share this quick story, Lori? Because I guarantee
Go
people will
ahead.
laugh.
This is about technology.
Okay.
Go to town.
This is a true story. 1996, when it didn't matter how big your office was, if you had 2 brokers or 200 brokers in your office, we always sent someone out to do the install. Small office in Aurora, just north of Toronto, husband and wife, and one other person working out of the basement of their house. So she calls up, the husband and wife got a little excited, their first Windows computer. So she tried to set it up herself. So she called our support department. She got a hold of this guy named Bill. And she said, Bill, I've tried everything. I can't get it to work. And Bill said, what have you tried? I've done everything, Bill. I don't know what else to do. What have you done, Betty? Even taken my shoe off. Bill scratching his head going, what the hell? She thought the mouse was like a sewing machine pedal, and she had put it on the floor under her desk, and she literally was trying to move the mouse around with her stocking foot.
That's amazing. Wow.
So she sold in 97, thankfully, before I left Applied. True story.
That's a fantastic story. I love that one. That's one to share, and yeah, it's one to talk about for sure. I have never heard that before, to take the mouse and put it on the floor like a sewing machine. That's fantastic. When it comes to benefits, Chris, what do you like in the telehealth? What do you like most about the availability of telehealth when it comes to a benefit plan? What is it about that engagement piece or the benefit piece that you like most?
Okay, let's just kind of define telehealth as not just being with medical practitioners, like not just your doctor. We can talk about there's psychologists, counseling, psychotherapy. I had a call from another advisor this morning who called me up and asked about a platform. And Lori and I were talking about this before we started talking today. One of the things I really like is the anonymity that you can get. So this advisor called me up because he is working on getting a client who's in a small town, and they have one counselor in the town. And that prospect in the town that he's talking to, they have a staff member who's going to need counseling every week. And they don't want to send him to the clinic because they know damn well that when he goes in there, he's going to run into somebody else, or maybe on the way out, that he knows. And there's a stigma attached with it. So now he can actually get the counseling in the privacy of his own house without having to run into someone and being embarrassed and maybe stopping going to counseling as a result. So we're meeting them where they are. It doesn't work for everyone. You and I were speaking about people in remote parts of the country. That's not going to work for them. But in this case, it's going to be great because it's going to get him the counseling he needs when he needs it and give him the privacy he needs.
Oh, I like that. I think you hit on a really vital part of where technology has its fit. And I'm of the mind, we were talking about generational gaps. We were talking about trades, and we were comparing, an older tradesperson to a more millennial person, and their adaptability to the various technologies. I do wonder in our industry, though, Chris, where we have an older demographic of brokers and consultants, are we perhaps the holdout that is missing the touch point with our clients? Are we creating an adverse barrier?
You're asking me to throw half of our industry under the bus?
No, I'm not. I'm asking for a real conversation that says, how can we better educate? We have to do continuing education all the time.
Yeah.
So how can we do a better job in our industry not to create an adverse barrier that, in the case that you had just said, if I were an advisor that was not interested in helping that situation, would I say, well, you know what? It's too bad.
Yeah, I think we need, our job is really morphed in the last 5 to 10 years. We used to come in and just say, okay, here's your best product. It's with Canada Life, for Sun Life, for Manulife, for whichever carrier. And this is what I've done with the renewal. And now we're going into complementary HR space. And we're really providing more third-party advice than we did years ago. So is it up to us to know who the players are in the industry? Absolutely. But the problem is it's so fluid. We talked about LifeSpeak acquiring Lyft, acquiring Alavida. We've talked about CloudMD and Snap Clarity and Humanicare and Aspiria and all the acquisitions. Do we have to stay on top of it? Yeah. Is it a challenge too? Absolutely, because there's so many new entrants. A couple of years ago, when you looked at the EAP space, there were only a few EAP providers. Now we're getting into all these different companies that are transitioning into EAP providers. Years ago, I spoke to one. They were founded by two brothers who used to swim for the Israeli national swim team. They came to Canada, and it was an athlete performance monitoring platform. They took that and actually morphed it into an EAP platform. It's happening a lot. So it's really up to us to educate our clients as best as we can. The problem I find is that when you look at the P&C side of the industry and other segments, even the individual life, the benefits industry, and as a father of a daughter who's a ginger, I can say we're the redheaded stepchild of the insurance industry. We don't have that group lobbying for us, providing educational content. When you go to provincial P&C broker association conferences, they have all these different vendors lined up. They have these different educational things talking about third-party products. Their provincial associations endorse them. We don't have that working for us. So the education, because it's mainly carrier-centric, it's not beyond what the carriers are providing. So that's the challenge we have, is finding out who the players are in the space.
And what's the best approach? What's the solution? How do we keep up with, as Steve had mentioned earlier, you get a phone call a week from a new player wanting to do an offering, but are they a player that is worthwhile to? Somebody had said recently, if it's taking up headspace, it's taking up real estate in your brain and you're thinking about it, it better be making you money, right? I love that word. It really resonated with me. So there's a lot of players out there that shouldn't be taking up my real estate, but how do I keep track, or how do I even find out who's worthwhile to take up the real estate that then I can promote to my client base and prospective client base?
There's no clear-cut answer, but the best thing is to get involved, to talk to other advisors, whether it be through events like this, through associations and informal associations, CGIB, for example, whether it be going to IFEBP or KLU or whatever the other things are. Get involved. That's the only way you're going to find out. The amazing thing about this industry is there's so many people here who want to help others and who want to educate others. When Dave Patriarch spun off the benefits breakfast so he could focus on day-long educational content for CGIB, look at all the different advisors who took control of those meetings, those breakfast meetings, and now a whole slew of them have launched. Now we have meetings going on from Atlantic Canada out to Vancouver Island. So there are resources across the country for people to go out and network with others virtually and find out about what's going on. This morning I hosted the Toronto meeting. It's been a long time, so 3 hours ago. And we were talking about some of these platforms on our meeting. And that's how you're going to find out.
And
There's-
what's the weed through? When you weed through what's vital, are you thinking of particular situations with your clients, or are you sourcing what may be? Like, are you looking for the shot coming into the goal, or are you looking for the potential shot to the goal?
Oh, that's a great question. I think you have to look for both because it depends on your client. Some want bleeding edge. Some want something that's tried and tested and true. So it really depends on the client. You know, working predominantly in the tech space, I've got a lot who want to be bleeding edge, who want to find out what's the latest and greatest. You know, for example, I do Snapchat's benefits for Canada. A couple of years ago, they put on in vitro fertilization onto their benefits through a company in the US that was just launching, and they're providing $25,000 annually for, or not, sorry, lifetime for IVF. Some of these companies just want that. It's dependent really on the employer.
You know what? There couldn't be a better answer than that. What about privacy and disclosure? Now, we were talking recently in KLU with regards to has there been enough thought to the privacy and disclosure portion for when clients are signing up for these new technologies?
I don't think so. And I think that's not just the new technologies. I think that's also with the carriers. You know, there's one carrier whose parent company has made numerous investments in other platforms, and I'm sure we can all guess who that is. And you know, they're now doing cross marketing from other platforms they've invested in. You know, Canada Life is now going to be doing email blasts to plan members about Coho, which is a prepaid credit card. I think we do have to be careful, very careful about who we're actually disclosing information to, especially with privacy leaks going on. You have to find out who the provider is, what the security is, what is the data host in Canada.
And just because you sign on through your enrollment form, that does not give the carriers carte blanche to use that information wherever they want. Do you foresee that coming into an actionable plan later on? Like, do you see any legal ramifications later on that might happen from that?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm kind of disappointed that no one's actually contested LTD ceasing at age 65. I thought that would have happened years ago. So so will things actually be contested before the courts? I'm not hopeful. No. I thought with that teacher in Southwest Ontario who took it to the courts, I thought it was going to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. It didn't. So who knows?
Talk to me a little bit about some of your favorites. We've talked about Grin, the virtual orthodontist. I thought that was really cool. We were talking about creating the virtual water cooler as being part of the benefit plan. Take me through a couple of these new and emerging trends in technology that I think you hit on a really good spot when you said, you know, we are becoming HR support. I think we've always been HR support, but from my perspective, there's a real definition now between what is HR and what is people and culture. And we've seen that divide. So if we focus on that HR support, take me through that virtual. I'm absolutely intrigued, and I'm disappointed in myself, Steve, that it's been out for over a year and I'm just, you know, now hearing about it. So, you know, I'll say, well, at least I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, we're not giving free press to Sino, but that's one that's intrigued me. So we were, again, you and I were talking about this at the very beginning. Steve, you hopped on. Sandy, Will, to give you guys an update. Actually, Will, we talked about it this morning. That's one that's intrigued me. Sino is a Newfoundland-based startup, and it's a subscription base where people get access to psychotherapy, to virtual physiotherapy, Riku massage. I'm not sure how to pronounce that properly. But now they're also doing virtual team building events, bingo, trivia, what have you. That's one that I just had a call with them yesterday. I'm going to get a demo of their platform on Monday to see that. That's intrigued me. You know what's, take this a different way, Lori, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
One thing I love, and I've used a lot of this during COVID, is Upwork and Fiverr, where you can hire contract people to do things. I'll give you an example. It's about 3 hours ago, I hired someone. 4 hours ago, I hired someone on Upwork, and he's just completed the job 2 hours ago. So what I've done is I've come up with a Google sheet that allows me to plug in LTD calculations and show what people are actually eligible for. So there's a flat, you plug in 66 and 2/3, you plug in their salary, you plug in what the cap is in the LTD. And I've also put it graded. So you can plug in, 78% of the first 1250 and 60% of the next 3750 and 50% of the balance. And this person literally 2 hours created for me an LTD spreadsheet that does a comparison if you do a flat versus if you do a graded. No time. And he did this for, I think his rate's $90 an hour. So it cost me like an hour. It cost me $90, maybe an hour and a half to get this done. I created a benchmarking spreadsheet again with someone I found off of Fiverr, actually off Upwork. My bad. I find it's so much easier to get talent now because the world is so virtual. My Salesforce customization was done by a guy in Pakistan, and I think I did for $2,000. I've put everything in there, calculable fields that calculate automatically. EHC and dental rates, TLRs, IBNRs, trends, pooling charges. It's all there for my clients in Salesforce. I track it all. So that to me has been like the best thing that I've done. So a lot of other platforms, great, but people you can find, be creative. Get a benchmarking, get different sheets done.
Where do you see things going in the next year?
In what sense?
Well, in the sense of technology, will there be a technology, people will pick what they want and stick with it, or do you see more evolution? Do you see more things moving into the tech sphere? My head boggles to think what else could move into the tech sphere, but you've said, we're doing virtual orthodontic now, so stick your own things on your teeth and we're off to the races.
Oh my gosh. As long as we don't get into virtual childbirth, I think pretty much anything is fair game now. I mean, once I saw that physiotherapy and orthodontics went online, I think everything is fair game. What I see.
Well, they've been trying to do, I can say from working with the Physiotherapy Association, they've been trying for at least the last 10 years to get their physiotherapists to have a virtual platform. So they were ready to go. When things went virtual, they just turned that tap on because all of it had already been built. And much like I said, their own aversion is what held them back.
I just thought of this one thing. Personally, I think it's drying up a little bit. I'll give you an example. There's a tech space in Toronto called the DMZ. It's affiliated with Ryerson University. They generally have between 40 to 70 companies in there at any given time. I've been an advisor there since 2014. So when any insurance or insurance related, like on the periphery companies come through, they'll ask me to come in and consult with them. I spoke to about 4 of them during the first 5 months of COVID. Haven't spoken any since, which is interesting. Now, the DMZ did a pivot, but there is still a whole slew of companies in there. I was speaking to companies. There was one that came through that was doing virtual emergency dental diagnostics. There was one that had an AI-built psychotherapy platform. There was a whole slew of them. And some of them were from established entrepreneurs. Some were actually from kids who were literally just brand new out of school. Like the one that got into the dental diagnostics, they transitioned from being a wedding photographer booking platform to emergency dental diagnostics as a result of COVID. Yes, it was an interesting pivot, but I haven't had the DMZ reach out since probably this time last year with any companies that are insurance related that they want me to consult with.
What, from your perspective, Steve, where are you seeing it going?
Me and Tim were both nodding there. I think from a benefits focused tech play, I don't think you're going to see a lot more coming down the pipe, because what many people have been trying for the last 10 years is what they're realizing is it's extremely hard, because there's a distribution channel that most don't understand. So like going direct to, when I say consumer, I mean to a plan administrator or a company. they think it's easy to do that and kick out the advisor. But I think the advisor community has kind of shown their worth and not allowed it, to be honest. And then two, the other challenge, the flip side of that. So if you go, okay, I'm going to work through advisors, all the points that you're talking about are bang on, meaning it's an older demographic who is not necessarily looking to change a whole bunch. And there's so few of them. It's a very unique distribution channel, and doing both doesn't work either. And because of the total market size for some of these ventures, it's not that big. So VCs, you're not creating unicorns in the benefit space because it's just not that big in Canada. So you either have to have aspirations quickly to go to the US, or to be honest, it doesn't check a lot of VC's box, and you just like, it's just not big enough of a business for them. It's a fantastic business, but it's not a VC-able business in a lot of cases. That's my thought.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. And I think the financial due diligence is of utmost important, especially right now, because as Chris just said, it is drying up. And the thought behind the advisors, they trust the other advisors. But what happens if the rug's pulled out of a funded company, you have clients with them? And I think that COVID has kind of put a shot down the barrel saying that we're not going to fund you infinitely. We have to have a business plan and a business model. And as Chris can attest to, it just did attest to, when they go away quickly. So it's not, we're going to close this thing down in a year. It's, we're going to close it down right away. One thing, when we were starting up, we've always been a bootstrap company. You know, used to do it because we had to, nobody would give us money. And now we do it because we kind of think it's fun and we like being the bootstrap company, but there's some consistency to that. We're very transparent what we are. And if you're not transparent with who you're providing or who you're putting clients with and knowing exactly what's under there, I think you have to be careful, because in the next year or two, it's just, as Chris said, it's drying up, and there's not going to be the funding that's coming out and keeping these companies that aren't really companies. They're just ideas, but they're keeping them afloat through other people's finances.
One other thing I want to add, just to kind of piggyback off what Tim and Steve said, loud bang there. I think there are a lot of very small niche companies that, I mean, there's a limited number of VCs, and I think they're getting inundated left, right, and center with some of these extremely niche products. So I mentioned that I was put in touch with about 4 different platforms through the DMZ. One other one that I was put in touch with, it was a platform for mental health for mothers who had just given birth for the Canadian market. So again, they were trying to raise money. Great product, great idea, but an extremely small segment. And they were struggling, trying to raise money, trying to get traction. And they kept saying, you know, how do we get in front of insurance advisors? And I said, you don't go to insurance advisors. Get in touch with the HR people, the HR groups. Though, if you're going to have any traction, it's going to be with them, not through insurance advisors. But I just find there's so many of these little, really micro products that are coming out that it's just inundating people and confusing things.
And then there's the idea of consolidation. You know, like I would say that an aspiration from some of the tech companies that I know, when they were small, they want to be acquired. They want to have that idea, bring it to the marketplace, have it be successful, and then have it purchased by somebody who then is able to put that marketing behind it.
Well, that's something that's drilled into their skulls and drilled into their way of thinking from day one. So I've been bootstrapping my own benefits platform for quoting and for, you know, digitizing forms and tying it to existing HRs. And I've pitched to, I mean, not to as many people as Tim and Steve have, but to countless VCs and angel investors and what have you. And when you get in front of the angel investors, the ones who are making those small investments that can add up to, you maybe $500,000, maybe 250,000. One of the first questions they ask you, how am I going to get my money back? And then the second one is, when am I going to get my money back? So they're not long-term plays. They're told from the onset, 2 to 5 years, want my money back, let's get out.
And that's going to make an impact, and certainly a conversation for another day as we come to time, because again, as advisors, if we're going to be recommending something, do we want it to change and have that carpet pulled out from under our clients when it has been consolidated or purchased or modified in some way that no longer meets that need. But I want to continue this conversation, so I'm going to invite you to come back. It's always the fastest timeline in my week. So thanks so much for coming in. Chris, I hope you'll come back, and
Sure.
Steve, Tim, I hope you'll come back as well. Come back. I want everybody to come back. Come on back.
I know where the love is.
Thanks, Lori.
Thanks so much. We'll be in touch soon. Take care.